Welcome. I'm just going to show a short tutorial on a little tool in Photoshop that I use occasionally when I'm struggling to get a result that I want, and that's mainly in blending a sky and a foreground together. Now, it's good to know, to learn to know your tools in Photoshop, or even a plugin. So this plugin here is a purchased plugin, TK9 multi-panel from Tony Kuiper. I've had these panels, got this up to version 3 now, or TK9. I think it was about TK3, TK4 when I got involved with the panel, and I've seen many upgrades to it. And that adds to my tools, helps me develop my images to where I want them to be. So I'm just going to show you a very basic tool. It's built into Photoshop. It's called the gradient tool, and it can be found, I think it's G. Sometimes your paint bucket will be at the front. So your gradient tool is just here. Now, when would I use my gradient tool as a photographer, landscape photographer, is when I've shot 2 images, because this is not my image. This is an image, there's a course I purchased many years ago, and it came with a dozen images. So I'm just using, I'm not too sure who this photographer is. He shot this probably maybe sunset or sunrise, I'm not sure, and he's exposed the land to the correct values. So he's correctly exposed the foreground, the background looks really great, and then he would have shot another image maybe straight away, or he may have waited for 10 minutes and then he shot this image. So on a tripod, he hasn't moved, he may have waited for a few minutes, or he may have shot it straight away, and he shot this sky image correctly exposed. He would have been looking at his histogram, made sure he wasn't clipping any highlights, and he shot the sky correctly. But we can see we've got a silhouette, and that's the problem shooting into bright light as a landscape photographer. Our senses are limited, and our eyes have a very wide dynamic range. I've seen documentation with our eyes. We can see over 20 stops of light. I've seen documentation even up to 24 stops of light. So our cameras, now if I bring up a website, and let's bring this over here, it's called DxO Mark. And you can come in, click on your cameras, and you can actually find your camera here. You can go your format, your type, your brand, whatever. And you can come in and look for your camera. So let's look at the Nikon D850, a camera that I actually sold a couple of years ago. Very good camera. Very good camera to still buy if you're getting into landscape photography. You can find one. It's got a dynamic range of 14.8 stops of light. And if you just click on that there, that'll just open up and give you an overall score. Your color depth for portrait, landscape dynamic range, as I said, 14.8, and it has a low ISO rating of about 2660. Okay, so you can see most of these modern, or not modern, it's a few years old now, but a lot of cameras are around that 14, some get close to 15 stops of light. You can load more cameras. You can see the R3 14.7. Z6 Nikon 14.3. So as a landscape photographer, you really want a sensor that's really pushing the boundaries. The R8, the Canon 14.7. So that's give you a rough idea what your camera sensor is like. So as I said, 14 stops of light. My eyes can see 24 stops of light. So that's the problem as landscape photographers, or photographers, like if you've got a camera, we see amazing dynamic range. We see the color in the sky, we see the foreground, we take a photo, and we end up with something like this where we've got no color, or we end up exposing the sky and we've got no detail. So that's why we still at times, well, most times, if you're shooting into a bright light and you cannot get that image in one shot, you've got to revert to taking 2 images. So let's bring this tool into play and see how I would use it. So once again, I would put the dark image on top, and I want to put a layer mask on the top image. So, but I want it a black layer. So what I'm going to do, hold the left Alt key down as I click on the mask button, which is next door to the effects button. And just click left click, and that will put a black mask on that layer. If I didn't hit the Alt key, it would be a white mask. So if it was a white mask, you'd have to reverse everything I did. You'd have to turn your gradient to black to white. So once you've on your tool, it brings up the properties task at the top here. So we can see gradient. We're going to go from white to black. If you want to reverse that, you can just hit the reverse, just tick that, and we'll turn it from black to white. All right. So what I'm about to do now, I'm covering the sky image with a black mask. And you can see it's linked here. So just imagine that this black layer mask is on top. All right, so it's covering the sky. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to reveal, so it's like a scratchy card. I'm just going to scratch off the white. You could say, you know, it could be black paint. You're going to scrape the black paint off and reveal what is below. And we're going to use the gradient tool because it's a feathered tool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is come up. I've got my mouse, and I'm just going to click above the image, and I'm going to left click and hold, and then I'm going to drag down. Now I'm going to hold the shift key down because that's going to hold it in more in the horizontal, because I can just move my mouse and it goes left and right, and I don't get a real straight line. So I'm just holding my shift, and I'm going to bring this down, continue bringing it down to where I feel the image, it looks good. Okay, so I'm just going to take my finger off the mouse button, and if I hit the Alt key again and click on the layer mask, that's what we've got. So white is revealing 100% of this image here, and as I come down, it's a gradient, so it's getting darker, less, dark, and totally black. So what's totally black? I'm not revealing anything of this top image here. Okay, I'm just going to go hit the Alt key and bring that back, and you can see that gradient. Now you can paint on a mask. All right, so you might say, man, I just want to maybe bring in a little bit across here. So what you can do, so I'm going to use white. Okay, so what I'm going to do is come and make sure that I have white as the foreground color. Use the arrow or hit the X key on your keyboard. So your foreground color, and I need to change it back to brush. Okay, and look, I use a pen and tablet. If you want to take your editing skills to a different level, I would highly recommend investing into a, just go back to my brush, go back to a pen and tablet. Now, for what reason would I use a pen and tablet? Good question. Let's go up and create a new, now I want to do file, new, 15, is it white? Yeah, we could try that. Okay, so this is the black document. Okay, now you can see I've got black as my foreground. I've got a paintbrush, and I've got 100% flow, 100% opacity and 100% flow. Now if I pick my mouse up and go and just click my mouse and just start painting, I'm painting at 100%. All right, I can't feather this. I can't, it's all or nothing. Now I can come up with my opacity and drop that down to, I don't know, 40% and go, oh, hopefully, and then I'm clicking, but then I might go, oh man, I haven't got enough. And you've got to come back up here, go back to 17% click. And you might go, no, it's still too strong. So you're wasting time. You're going back up. You're just wasting your time. So let's go back to 100 and let's just delete what I've done. Now, with my pen and tablet, 100%. Now, if I just lightly on my tablet, and I'm actually, I don't know if you can see this is a video, but it's very light. But I can just increase a little more pressure, a little bit more pressure. And I can just come in and totally put not a lot of pressure, because I can set it up on my pad as 100%. So you can go from strong down to nothing. All right, so you've got a lot of advantage to that. Now, if I just go into my settings, so my brush settings, which can be found in Windows. So you go Windows, there's my brush settings, and I've just got my transfer ticked, and I've got it locked actually, but if you just click on it, I've got my pen pressure, and actually turn this one on as well. So you go in, you make sure your pen pressures are on, okay, and these are my settings. All right, you can have smoothing on if you want, and there's a lot of things you can add and do with your brushes. Okay, now another important thing is if you're using your brushes a lot is, let's go back and have a look over on your brush setting properties up top here. I always use the softest brush you can get. All right, so there's my hardness, so it's 0. Now, you can see all these brushes are always soft. Now, I can go and get a hard round, okay, but there's no feather on the edges. So when you're in landscape and you're doing your trees or your water or your rock, you really want a soft edge brush just to kind of blend what you're doing into the image. So soft is very important. Okay, let's go back to this image and let's highlight the layer, because that's the layer I'm working on. You can see a really thin white line around that. If I'm on this image and I start painting, it'll be a mistake. So just make sure you're on the image, and we're revealing more of the sky. So let's come in. I'm going to use my right bracket key just to increase the size. Now I'm at 100%, that's fine. Look, and I can come in very, very gently and just bring in more of that sky, but I want to be very careful I don't overdo it. And once again, it's all how you want your image to look. Okay, so I'm just getting a little bit dark, that's fine. I can come up and maybe more color in the sky. All right, so look, hopefully that just helps somebody. Look, I'll just show you the pen that I'm using. It's X pen. So you don't need an expensive brush and pad. Look, I think this cost me $50. Very, very, very cheap. You don't have to go and spend $300, $400, $500 unless you're professional and you're earning money out of it. You know, there's a lot more features, but this will suffice most people. Xpen website, they update their drivers quite regularly, so just make sure your drivers are up to date and you'll be good to go. So hopefully this helps somebody. Thanks for watching.